The Teaching and Learning Transformation Center presents a candid conversation about office hours, where we hope to inform, encourage, and inspire you to connect with faculty, TAs, and other advisors. With Emily Hay, Sarah Kistner, and Leah Rendell. And I'm the host, Georgette Green-Hodnett. So we already know that there are great benefits to students in participating in office hours. Emily, would you mind sharing a positive experience that you've had with office hours?
Yeah, so I definitely think office hours are super helpful. And I think one of the main classes that I really see like the benefits of office hours would be my CS classes, especially because for CS we do like a lot of projects and some of them can be a little bit confusing. And I think it's really nice to have that just extra help. And for me, like the CS TAs are all super like nice and super informative as well. And they've really helped me like not only like expand my CS knowledge, but also just be able to do my projects and fix my projects as well.
Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, so I have a relatively like recent experience with office hours. I have a class that I'm super interested in, and it's just been a little difficult for me to speak up in class. I felt like since coming back into university, I've been out for a few years now. I'm still trying to carve my way and find my voice. And I wanted to make that known to my professor. I didn't want them to think that I was just in the class and I didn't want to participate. I was nervous to participate. There's a class dynamic that I was just unsure about, and I decided that I had to go to the professor and talk to them about how I was feeling. So I worked up the courage and I walked into the office hours, and I just was honest about where I was standing in the class, that I wasn't having a certain problem with the material. It was just that in general, I didn't know how to express my thoughts in class or how to engage with the material. So I went in and just talked to her about how I was feeling, and she was so receptive to it. She really calmed those nerves, made me feel better, and offered advice about what I can do in the following classes to make sure that I'm taking advantage of being in a room full of really educated people who were bringing so much to the table. So it was such a positive experience for me to go in there and have a conversation.
That sounds fantastic. Leah, as a faculty person having taught here at the university, boy, I bet that's something you would have hoped more and more students have done. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think on the flip side of this too, we learn a lot from the students that come to office hours as well. So I remember, at least for me, I was teaching a course over the summer period, and a student came to my office hours and they were really struggling with one of the assignments. And I kept asking questions about it and just learning like what they were struggling with most. And I realized I had actually forgotten to go over that particular assignment in class. And it just had completely spaced it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. We're going to go over this once we get into class, the first thing we do next week is that we're going to do that. So I think we also have to remember that professors on the other end are also human, and we also find it really useful to hear the feedback that you have for us, because whether it be having forgotten to explain an assignment or finding out that something that you thought you explained really clearly just didn't resonate with the students, it helps you know exactly how you can really improve their experience. So I think that, at least as someone who's taught a course, find anyone who comes to my office hours, it's a very valuable experience for me.
And I loved in this conversation that Sarah shared how she brought her fears to her professor. And I think that that's a really important point. Often we assume that office hours is just for the academic side. But as an institution of higher learning, this is about the whole person. And so you should feel that comfort. You should know that that opportunity should be there for you. And maybe if it's not there for you on that first run or with that first professor, you can find a trusted person to also assist you. Emily, I know you've had a positive interaction with a faculty person, a person who I think you've seen more as an advisor. Will you share a little bit more about that? Not necessarily a faculty person.
Yeah, I think my first semester here, I was really lucky because I was able to attend a class. It was actually a class that this advisor was teaching, and she was just it was really nice because the class was super small, so I felt like she had pretty good connections with everyone in the class within the class. But for me in particular, I remember like sometimes I'd be walking back from the class back to my dorm or something, and then the advisor would actually end up like walking with me, and then we had really good conversation. And I think we were also really lucky that I was able to continue that relationship. Like every semester, I would go to her and just if I had any problems or like just things I was going through in school, I was able to just talk to her about it. And that was like really nice. And it's been really nice to be able to have a faculty member that's there for me for sure.
And was that you initiating that relationship?
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, like I feel like faculty members, very busy they have their own schedule and own things going on. So for me, like obviously really enjoyed her company. And so I would just like send out a little email saying like, like how's your semester going? And is it okay if we would be able to meet up sometime this week and something like that. And she was super nice. She always like responds like right away. And like we've been able to like go out and get lunch together, which was really, really fun. And yeah, it's been really nice.
That's wonderful. And I think the fact that you took that initiative, it was a risk maybe that she may not be available, but look at all the benefits that you've shared that you've gotten from it. So that was a calculated risk that worked out. Thank you for sharing that.
I also, as someone who's gotten that email on the flip side, I feel like it's such a heartwarming experience because a lot of the times students take your course and then you never hear from them again. So getting to even just get some updates on what you've done afterwards, I feel like that's one of the really rewarding parts of it. So I think, at least for me, whenever I get an email from a former student, I'm very, very excited by it.
Thank you for bringing the other side because it is rewarding for that faculty person to know that they've made that connection with at least one student, and they know they've impacted more, but that one really helps them to carry through as well. So we talked a little bit about fears already. Can you share a little bit, Sarah, about a fear or fears that someone might have told you about that's hindering them from coming to office hours?
Yeah. I'll be transparent that for me, before applying to this program, I had already done my research on this particular professor, and I admire her and her work. And so coming in at a grad level, I wanted to kind of show that, I have what it takes to be here, and that there's just this different dynamic that I was having. So I was ashamed or kind of embarrassed to walk into her room and show like, hey, I'm struggling, because I put her on this pedestal, right? Wow, amazing, this human, and I want to be like her. And so that was something like feeling ashamed or embarrassed to go into a professor's room because you're putting them on a pedestal essentially, right? Mm-hmm. Or just feeling in general that I know those hours are open, but sometimes, a lot of students don't walk in there, so they're doing work, and I just feel like maybe I'm interrupting their time, even though that time is for us. Like, am I impeding or something like that too?
Well, at least, I can't speak for everyone, but at least when I'm setting office hours, one, we're required to have office hours, and those times. This time is set aside for students to come in. So we're obviously not just going to sit at our desk doing nothing while we're waiting for students to come in, because sometimes no students come in at all. But at least for me, whenever I see a student, it's like my stuff, I always push it over to the side and I'm just ready to talk and engage with the students that are coming in. Because again, I think we've obviously set aside these hours for the students. And so the more often we can use them to help students, the better.
And I think that Sarah brought up the point about the person is a human. So while it might be the noted, Nobel Peace Prize winning or the noted Oscar winning faculty or whomever, they are just people. They too went to office hours at one point in their life. They too understand that this is a part of their work and may just need that reminder of saying, I feel uncomfortable or I want to feel as though I matter and it's worth, I'm worth your time. And so it's good that you brought that forward and it's good that you gave it a try. It's good. It's a good thing. Emily, any experiences with fear associated with trying office hours or challenging experiences?
Sorry. Yeah. So I think for me, a lot of my office hours, they have like professor office hours and then they also have TA office hours. And I feel like for me, that can be a little bit like it's definitely like a little bit more intimidating going to the professor office hours because I feel like the questions that I have can be answered by the TA. So why would I go to the professor? But at the same time, like I think it's harder to build a relationship with your professor if you're not going to those office hours. So I think it's that struggle of like yeah, like similar to what Sarah said about putting them on a pedestal, but just knowing that they are there to help you and that you can go to them for the same questions.
Can I say something? Okay. She made me think about when she said like office hours, TA hours, professor hours. I know that when we had orientation, all the professors in our department made it very evident that like these aren't office hours, they're student hours. These are for you. And so they stopped calling them office hours and they started calling them student hours. And I think having it framed in that way really encouraged me a little bit more probably than before to go because they are student hours. Those are framed for us and not just professor or TA hours.
I do think the framing, at least, I mean, if anyone's watching this from a faculty perspective and wondering how they can increase people coming to their office hours, something I did that was very helpful in terms of actually getting students to come in is I would have a Google Calendar and I would have slots where you could just book time. Because I think it helped in a few senses. First of all, you wouldn't have to worry that, is this a good time for me to come in? I think the other thing is when you have these office hours or student hours that happen every week, some students are like, well, what if everyone is there at the same time? So I had regular office hours, and then I also had these additional office hours where you could come and speak one-on-one. So if you had something that you wanted to talk about that you were afraid, what if there's another student here and I don't want to share all of these things in front of them, you kind of knew that this was your 15 to 20 minutes that was just with the professor, and we both got a calendar invite as soon as you booked it. So I think they felt a little bit more comfortable with those. And a lot of the times I think I actually had far more students come to those individual office hours than I had at all in my regular office hours.
And then hearing you talk about that, it might be a benefit to faculty, advisors, coaches to utilize that method because then that's planned time. It's not, I hope I'll get to finish this last little piece and then someone comes in and quote unquote interrupts me. I could know for a fact that my time is available because I've already kind of scheduled it out.
Yeah, it's nice because you kind of know the day out. And again, you have to, because some students will try to book an office hour like right before it happens. So you just have to make it up front that you have to do this 24 hours in advance or 12 hours in advance, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But then it's true, you know that I'm not going to be sitting here for an hour and a half with no one coming in. I know that I have this person booked and this person booked.
Yeah. I think if you think about from a perspective of a faculty staff advisor, they also might have fears. They're dealing with, as all students are, the competing demands of life, family, work obligations. In some cases, like Leah, they are also students, so they're trying to balance all the things. So many times we're thinking the fears are one-sided, where the faculty also might say, oh my, what if I come here? I've driven all the way here and no one comes, right? What if they all come and I'm ill prepared to offer them what they're looking for? So there are fears on both sides. And we know as students, we're often not thinking about how this impacts the professor or the TA, but on both sides, we want this to be a rewarding experience. I'd like you guys to offer students listening some advice that you think could help them to maximize the use of their office hours, their visits. Sarah, we can start with you. Any advice?
Yeah. Well, my first piece of advice is to go, whether you have an issue in the class or not. I think just going and introducing yourself during those hours are really beneficial, and it helps create this relationship with the professor that might help you in your academic journey. Sooner, later, it might happen. So I think just going and introducing yourself and see what happens after that. And then if you do have a certain issue or something you would like to address, I would come with those questions ahead of time and kind of frame how you want that to go. Because I think when you walk in, and Leah, you can help me here, when you walk in, you're kind of in charge of how that next 20 minutes or 30 minutes is going to go. So if you're not prepared, the professor or the TA isn't going to be able to help you much in that sense either. So preparing those questions and introducing yourself no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because when you do come in with these questions, like as the person answering these questions, what I'm really trying to allow you to do is go anywhere that you think is going to be helpful for you. So it does kind of put the direction on you to tell me, like, this is my question. This is what trips me up. Like, this is where I want to talk. Because what I don't want to do is take over and start lecturing, because that's what the lectures are for. So I'm really trying to understand you as an individual, what is tripping you up. And so I'm not going to take over the conversation. So if you come in and you're like, I'm wondering about X, but you don't expand about what you're wondering about, it's hard for me to figure out exactly like what you're struggling with. So I do think that coming in with like a very focused plan is very helpful for, I think, you, and also for the person on the other end, so for the professor as well.
I think that when you talk about introducing yourself, it might also be helpful to introduce your goals, your major, your aspirations. If you might have a learning challenge, if you're a commuter or a residential student. I know of a case where a commuter student, the professor canceled the class minutes before they arrived to campus. And they were frustrated by that. And so, made time to get with the faculty to say, just so you know, I'm commuting 2 hours by public transportation. If you could, and the faculty was very open, but they weren't aware of their last minute cancellation of the course really impacted a commuter student differently than a residential student. So in that introduction, don't hesitate to include the things that are important to you, important in the way that it could help the faculty to help you during that meeting.
I think if you as an instructor want to try to encourage this kind of dialogue as well, another thing that I would do at the beginning of the year is for their first participation assignment, I would have them come in for like 5 minutes just to introduce themselves and see what office hours are like. And that really opened it up for students to be able to address some concerns that they may, it's intimidating the first time you go into the office hours. So if you know that this instructor cares so much about office hours that they're forcing you to do this for a participation assignment, it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable coming in. And then also just as a professor, as an instructor, you're able to ask a lot of questions from them that you might be interested in, and then they're just able to have a place to share. And it was just 5 minutes. It's a little bit of time starting off, but you really get to know your students a lot better. And so I think you're able to have a better classroom experience for everyone involved as well, because you know the faces in front of you.
And for faculty members that might have extremely large classes, I would suggest you take that idea and expand it with your TAs, where there's this collective make appointments. We wouldn't assume one faculty person could meet with 200 people, but you could kind of divide it up, or maybe over the course of several weeks, maybe not in the first week. So there are ways to amend that suggestion for all on staff.
Yeah, and surveys are also really nice, like an introduce yourself survey,
Mhm.
because that doesn't require meeting time and the coordination with that, but you can still get kind of a general overview of the students that are in your course as well.
It helps too to make connections, and that you'll know as even the students are participating or not participating in class, what that means as you get to meet them and get to know them.
Yeah, so I remember my first semester in college was definitely really scary going to office hours because, yeah, you're just in this new environment and it professors seem really intimidating. So I think for me, I actually made like goals that I would go to office hours, like, oh, like this week I'll go to this one, and then next week I'll go to another class. And I think for me that like held me accountable. And yeah, I think after going to them, like I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And like all the professors were super like accommodating and everything. So I think that definitely really helped me.
Thank you. And I like you talked about being accountable, and there are some students that might need an accountability partner. So maybe a student would say, Emily, you go and I'll tell you how it was. Or maybe I'll go with you, Emily. We're in this class together. You'll come with me to the other class that I'm concerned with that we're in. So accountability could be physical accountability and support, or it could be just kind of touching base with one another. So I think that's great advice. So I want us to talk about some difficult situations that students might have had in their course or with their advisors or with their coaches, because even coaches technically have office hours, right? When admin practice is over, they might need to talk to a team member. How can we deal with some challenging situations? And I'll just name a few. Student might have felt uncomfortable with the tone that the professor or the advisor used during a lecture. Maybe they had differing views, point of views, for in the course or with the professor. Maybe the student got a low grade and they were really feeling like, I can't show my face, I'm too embarrassed. Any advice on, let's talk about it from the other side. Some faculty members might have some challenging times and situations. What might that be, Leah? And then we'll talk on the other side about difficulties that students might have coming to office hours.
Some challenges we might have with office hours is there might be students that come unprepared, and then they come in and they're like, I have, like you're trying to kind of fish for what question they have. And that can be a really, I think, a little bit stressful experience for the instructor because they're really trying to help the student, but it doesn't look like the student actually even knows what they want help with. And so you can kind of feel like I think you can get a feeling that's like it's a little defeating because you're like trying really hard, but they don't even know what they are trying to answer. I think another challenge is having students come in, like maybe this is a group office hour and you have one student that is coming in almost just to show off a little bit. So you know that there are two other students in this office that have a lot of questions that you want to get to, but this student keeps interrupting and being like, I know the answer, which I mean, it's great to know that they're doing well, but you also want to be able to give some of the floor to these other students that are struggling. So sometimes it's difficult commanding the office hours to make sure that everyone gets a voice. And also on top of that, even if you can say, all right, now it's this person's turn to ask a question, you also have to be aware of the fact that now that student, because this other student is in the office hours with all the right answers, this student will now no longer feel comfortable asking the question because they don't want to embarrass themselves in front of this other student and in front of the professor. So I think that can be challenging when you have a group of people in your office hours and they clearly all have different goals coming in.
How do you address that as the faculty person?
I think it's hard because I think that's partially why I have these individual office hours that they can book so that I know that people can get their own like individual attention when they need it. I think the other thing you can try to do again is give people turns to ask questions. I think I also try to stress that I don't think there's any dumb question. And I want you to ask these questions because I don't want you to leave my office hours with the same questions you came in. And I think I also try to make it clear that I'm not there very impressed with just coming in with the right answer. Like I'm impressed when you're searching for the right answer. So if you come in and you're really trying, like that's what impresses me. I'm not incredibly impressed by the person that just has all the right answers all the time. Like I'm really looking for people searching for the answer as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at the same time, there are those scholarly students who are so excited to get to work with you that they do want to talk through these interesting ideas and what's in the news and what they read. So
And you don't
part
want
of
to shut them down because you're
that's
like, this
right.
is great. Like you may be a future me in
Yes,
several
yes.
years. So but yeah, it's just like, I think this is probably a struggle in general in a classroom is you're going to have students that are way ahead of the curve and they've just read everything. And some of that has to do with preparation. And I always want to stress this with students. Some of these students have come in and they've taken these courses, like they've taken AP courses, so they're just better prepared. So that's my caveat whenever I talk about this, because I think that we tend to be like, oh, this person is just really, really smart and somehow knows all these things when we have different backgrounds.
That's right.
So with that caveat, you have these students are just like zooming through the material, and then you have students that are struggling. And it's really hard to try to figure out as a professor, like what is the best place to be teaching at, and how do we bring everyone in together so that it's a unit instead of an uneven distribution.
I also I was thinking about what you were saying, Leah, about the use of the office hours time. We also don't want students to come to office hours to debate a grade. There are instances where there's a grade or how an exam was scored or how a paper was graded that you should come and inquire and have a conversation that's meaningful and purposeful. But even prepare for that. Prepare in what are your main points? What are your questions? Not just why did I get this grade, but maybe make sure that you show that you reviewed your answers and you looked back at the rubric and you have determined what the professor was looking for in the comments that they provided before coming to office hours to have the discussion about the grade. Because coming to office hours, you can come to talk about the grade in the course. No one talks about this. This gets sticky, but it is a place you could do that. But what advice, Leah or Emily or Sarah, that you would give a person who wants to kind of question a grade or feel as though they're being challenged with the grade they're having? Because there are sometimes students who are not expecting to fail. They've always done well. And now I have a 60. Oh my God. What can I do? There's so much here.
So I would say my first recommendation is if you're ever coming in to dispute a grade, I highly encourage you to send an email ahead of time. So first of all, so that the professor is able to kind of like go through your exam or go through your paper, or there are some professors that will literally email you back and say, grades are final, like I won't reconsider. And so that makes sure that you're not wasting your own time. And then again, I think that your tone coming in matters a lot. So if you're coming in and you're like, I think that you just tried to make me fail, you're not going to be super responsive because now you're trying to defend how you graded. And you obviously, as an instructor, you're not grading to try to punish people. You're trying to just provide as much information as you can. So I think if you come in and you say, I got this grade and I'm struggling with the fact that like I didn't perform the way I wanted to, and I have these particular questions that I got wrong that I want to talk through, I will be very receptive to that. But I'm not going to be receptive if someone comes in and says, I should have gotten 20 points more and they can't tell me why. And I mean, I think it's helpful first to just provide I'm coming in to discuss this so that the professor has time to prepare or tell you this is just non-negotiable. And then the other thing is there are times where the professors make mistakes. So there might be a situation where we graded something incorrectly, and coming in and sending an email saying, I think this was graded incorrectly, but I would love to discuss this and hear your point of view on this is just, I think it helps frame this conversation and make it a better experience for both the instructor and the student.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I feel like as a student, it's important to like understand why like it's being graded like this. So yeah, I think like definitely the tone of how you voice your question about your exam is definitely, or your grades is definitely really important.
So I don't have a lot of experience with like myself or friends disputing grades, but I mean, listening to Leah, I was thinking about it a little bit, that definitely make sure that you're doing a little self-reflection as well before you go into and start debating this grade. Like, well, did you wait until last minute, or did you put in all your effort that you say that you do? I think that's also like, hold yourself accountable before you just barge in and try to make statements that might not be able to be supported.
Really great points. Really, really great points. So as we wrap this up, this has been such a helpful conversation. I feel like on both sides, faculty and advisors can learn as well as students. So if you wanted to give any parting comments, Emily, we'll start with you, and then Sarah and Leah will finish up with you all.
Yeah, honestly, this conversation has been very beneficial to me. I know, especially with Sarah, like saying how she went into her professor's office hours just to, like to talk about how she's been feeling in class. I feel like that's something I can definitely use in my like academic life for sure. So yeah, it's been really cool just hearing everyone's perspective, and I'm really glad that I was given this opportunity to come and discuss. Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of Emily a little bit, and it's been a really great experience just being in this conversation and getting so many different perspectives. I'm learning a lot being here in this discussion, so thanks for giving us this option or this opportunity to be here and talk about something that in my undergraduate career, I did not talk about it at all, right? So now I'm here at a graduate level, and so it's really great to have a conversation like this. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, again, piggybacking off of both Sarah and Emily, I feel like there's just so much you can, there's so much mystery behind office hours sometimes. And I think that having this conversation and actually acknowledging that not everyone knows what to do in office hours all the time. And so just acknowledging that and opening it up and letting everyone know that you're not the only one that feels like, how should I use office hours? Kind of like, what are office hours for? So I think this conversation is just so important. And I also am just very grateful that I was able to be a part of it.
Yes, I would like to thank each of you for your contribution, your participation. And Leah was my thought partner in planning this event. I saw her speak at TLTC's conference. And just to know that there are people at the university willing to offer our students the support that they need, willing to offer office hours. And in many ways, even Emily referring to her advisor from a former class. We see, I think that the cornerstone that I see in everything that was said was we're dealing with people, and people want to be seen, people want to be heard. And the office hours is the setting that we can do that successfully on both sides. Students can see and hear and get to know faculty, and reverse. And so we hope that this episode of our podcast can help you in the ways that you will engage in office hours, participate, and encourage others to do so. So thank you so much, and until next time.